After the day's reprieve, despite my better judgment, this has to be done. Everyone is in better health and spirits. I called to the members that have witnessed the battle to better visualize a plan to retake the lost ground. As we constructed a plan to retake, I rallied the troops for an inspiring speech and sent them on their way, in smaller groups, to the fob. The first improvement we took was instead of a raid, we used smaller squads to keep our location as invisible as possible. And if one was uncovered, it wouldn't totally reveal the entirety of our incursion. Upon approaching the sealed metal gate leading to the locked fob, noticing that the axe incision was still there from days prior, Vinny placed RD once again to open the door from the other side. While the mechanism was a simple task for the prowess of the drone, the stress in the air grew ever present as every undead wanderer grew near. But slowly after opening the door, the group made their way through. Finally, progress. Vinny staying behind to reclose the door and open the door upon their re-arrival. Slowly wandering their way through the weirdly quiet streets, the group made their way to a gazebo that was being held by demolitionist expert Dutch and his motley crew of battered glass members. The crew now consisted of Wallace leading the charge, Zephyr and Meow as medics, Dempsey, Dozer, and Wrecker for damage and crowd control. Dutch explained the situation, pointing out the large archways that most of the enemies were pouring out of. This was the furthest we've gotten to success. Hopefully with everyone gathered, we can make some effort towards our goal. Dutch went to another point where junkies were seen to help out there and potentially stop the flow of junkies in the lines, leaving the group to protect the gazebo. After minutes of watch, the group heard the groans of the junkies slowly creep towards the group. A small horde appeared and attacked them. Dozer and Wrecker took the front of the damage while the rest stood a bit back to give covering fire and pick off stragglers, to help thin down the now dwindling horde. Dozer ended up sustaining a major injury that infuriated him. The blues in his armor started to slowly turn red as the battle continued. Then, once the horde finally came to a close, Dempsey noticed that his plates were almost neon red, unlike his neon blue he dons. The two ended up getting in a verbal fight, and Dempsey decided to join him with Dutch, wanting to make sure that he was okay and be set aside from Dozer's insightful rage. After Zephyr and Meow tried to calm down Dozer to the best of their abilities and started to tend to his wounds as best they could, without angering the Goliath, the group heard whispers all around them. The whispers started to narrow its way towards the main archway, revealing the same figure that greeted them at the door the other day. Lord Commander Void. The group took a defensive position as the figure started to monologue. More junkies appeared out from behind them, some massive with armor, others that looked starved and frail, but still a formidable foe. They then started to run towards the gazebo, and Void would just continuously begin to revive the fallen, so they would rise again. Dempsey eventually made his way over to Dutch's location and aided him in placing charges to detonate and crumble the archways to stop the flood of mana junkies. Dempsey then started to trek his way back to the group, hoping that Dozer is still not in his rage. As the last few stragglers were left and the fight was going in our favor, we decided to push them back as much as we could. Dempsey struggled with an armored junkie and nearly had his mask ripped off before Zephyr came from behind and grabbed the armored junkie. As Dempsey started to litter the being with bullets, Zephyr, now covered in guts and blood, horrified at the sight he helped create, turning around and seeing bloodshed flashing back to images for when he was first starting to be a combat medic in his first mission. He witnessed Dozer go face to face with Void, taking blows left and right without being able to do proper damage due to Void's incorporeal form. One of Void's scythes, a spiritual weapon of some kind, goes straight through Dozer's chest. Zephyr, noticing his strength, lifted Dozer a few inches off the ground and pulled the scythe away, dropping Dozer to the ground. Dempsey grabbed Zephyr, spun him around, and snapped him out of the trauma he was reliving. Dempsey loaded a new mag into his firearm and started shooting at Void, but the bullets just went right through. Void looked around and noticed that his junkies had all been dealt with. beside a few stragglers. He started to retreat and resurrect a few more to help continue this fight further. As Void fled the scene, Dempsey ordered Zephyr to follow him and take out the archway. They both ran towards the arch. Dempsey pulled out a couple of satchel charges and tossed one to Zephyr to place on the opposite pillar. They placed the satchels onto the wall to blow down the support beams that held it up. They set the charges and ran away to blow the archway down. As the charge blew and the explosion rang out to the desolate city, the party came to a rest. Zephyr sat on the steps of the gazebo. Dempsey checked his magazines. Those whose wounds were being tended to by Meow. Dutch eventually arrived and told them about the other opening and how he closed it. When he heard the explosion ring out, he ran here as fast as he could. Then, noticing the collapsed archway, he knew that the battle had came to a conclusion. The group started to pick up their things, most of the group looking haggard and beaten, some more than others. Dozer was struggling to stand, so he had to lean onto Wrecker. Wrecker sustained only minor injuries, but nothing too horrible. Zephyr sat on the steps, processing the aftermath, until Meow had to snap him out once again and bring him home. Bring us home.
Hello and welcome to what is probably the longest fucking episode that has ever taken to record. Let's go.
As we constructed a plan to retake, while the group made their way to a gazebo that was being held by demolitional. That's hard to say. Leaving the group to Lord Commander Void. Out from behind them, as Void explosion rang out into the death. Fuck me in the ass.